Welcome to Replenish the Atmosphere of Discovery. It is 3 o'clock. This is the atmosphere where we discover the master's plan. So today's session is on managing vulnerabilities, being exposed to the possibility of physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual harm is a vulnerability. Being exposed to the possibility of physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual harm is a vulnerability. So this exposure is a weakness, but it does not make you a weak person. Okay. We all have areas that are open to being a target, that are open to the possibility of damage, right? And so you need to manage or govern the openings that you allow for injury or damage. Okay, you need to manage these openings. There is a balance between managing these openings wisely and then being overprotective or not being able to build or keep healthy relationships, right? So absolutely not letting anybody in. That is not healthy. Okay, so there is a balance between managing those openings wisely, right? And then being overbearing or overprotective where you let nobody in. Okay, so a vulnerability is also when there is a inability to resist damage. Okay, so some people are self-sabotagers, right? They're drawn to chaos and toxicity. And then you have some people who are helpless and powerless. These are like infants and the elderly, right? People that are mentally challenged. You have people that have the inability to resist damage. And then you have some people who are just stubborn, right? And that blindness, that stubbornness is a vulnerability, okay? When you refuse to see past your immediate gratification, when you refuse to see past your immediate revenge or desire, you are blind, and that can lead to injury, right? Some people can be victimized by leading themselves into danger, okay? And then they attach that irresponsibility to other people. But did you expose yourself to that situation, right? Did you open yourself up to the wrong people and allow that injury to come to you? Okay, so we have to think about that. We cannot attach our irresponsibility onto other people. Okay, we have to be held accountable for the injuries that we have caused and stop playing the victim. Okay, oftentimes we are victims to our own greed, our own ignorance and vengeance because we're controlled by our emotions, right? We don't resist our impulses, right? And so that is a vulnerability that we need to manage. It is a weakness, and it is a dangerous one that a lot of us are often controlled by. We're controlled by these impulses for revenge, right? We're spiteful and we're envious and jealous, right? We want things when we want them. We don't care who we hurt. That's a vulnerability. And that's us victimizing ourselves, being led by our stubbornness and our greed. Okay. Being open is not bad, right? Even though you've had some people abuse your vulnerability, being open is not a bad thing. And we often go into the protection mode. I'm not letting anybody in, right? But you cannot grow. We need each other. Okay. There's things that other people have that we need, that they were created to help us get to the next place. And if you stay closed off because of an injury that someone else caused you, you would never get to that place. So being open is not bad. I know we've said that to ourselves over and over and over. Being open is not bad. Being open to the wrong people is bad. And if you didn't take the time to do your due diligence to get the information you need to find out the intents of the people that you are open to, some of that responsibility is on you. Okay. Being open builds a stronger bond in different kinds of relationships, right? Allowing another person the availability to get to know your needs and preferences, giving them access to your real emotions, that builds your relationship. right? That causes you to have something firm and something true to build upon. If you start that relationship off not being your true self, not telling them what you really want, what you really like, you just say, "Oh, I like whatever you like," right? To be accepted by them. They're not accepting you. They're accepting that false version of you that you gave them. Right. So allowing another person that availability to get to know your needs and preferences, giving them access to your real feelings, your real emotions, who you really are, that builds a relationship, right? But not managing who you're vulnerable with, that breaks those bonds and relationships. And it's both ways. Some people are vulnerable with people they shouldn't be vulnerable with, and it breaks the relationship. Some people are not vulnerable with the people they should be vulnerable with, and it breaks the relationship. Okay? Because you don't have nothing that is true there's nothing to hold or base that relationship on that is the truth, right? So you find relationships, especially like friendships and things like that, that start on you not really knowing who that person is. It's easy to break that relationship up, right? Sensitivity can be a vulnerability. Sensitivity can be a vulnerability. When you are sensitive in certain situations and you're sensitive towards certain people and you're sensitive with certain types of words and phrases and information that you have, that can be a weakness, right? Because your sense of awareness is heightened, you experience feelings more intensely, okay? And that awareness could be heightened negatively or positively, right? Meaning that you could be gifted to feel what others feel. You can have a gift or a burden for a certain group of people, right? So that it can be positive, or it can be negative because the reason why you're sensitive is because of an injury that you've had mentally, physically, or emotionally, right? When you are gifted with this awareness, when you're gifted with this sensitivity, you must protect it and make sure that you don't take on feelings that are not yours by learning to filter your thoughts, right? Filter your feelings, separate what are your feelings and what feelings belong to someone else. Okay. If you are sensitive due to an injury, right? Something has damaged you mentally, physically, emotionally, whichever way, you have to process that so that the world is not just seen and understood from an injured person's perspective, right? You don't want to create a victim personality, okay? And you may have been victimized, but you don't have to allow that to become who you are, because it will come out through your behavior towards the world, right? It will cripple you and keep you from growing into your full potential, because the only way you see the world is through an injured person's perspective. Okay, so you have to deal with those injuries so that it does not affect how you live your life. So these are just a few vulnerabilities that I've mentioned, but each of us have them, right? And we must identify what and where those weaknesses are, okay? Weaknesses are things we don't do well yet, okay? That's a weakness. And weakness simply means lacking strength. Just because you have a weakness doesn't make you a weak person, okay? There's a difference. Just because you have a weakness does not make you a weak person, okay? Some things you can't do, right? And then there are some things that you won't do because you're stubborn, right? And that stubbornness is still a weakness if it's going against what will prosper you, okay? And even though you think it makes you strong, you only think it makes you strong to be stubborn because of the strength of your refusal, right? There's power in your refusal, even if it's something that's not benefiting you. When you decide I'm not going to do this, but it benefits you, that is a weakness, right? Because it's not growing you. Okay, so a lot of our weaknesses, a lot of our vulnerabilities are based on our refusals, right? Most things that you won't talk about, most things that you won't face head on, these are your vulnerable areas. So you identify them, right? You say, hey, this is a weakness. This is an area I need to grow in. You don't ignore it, and you don't allow stubbornness to keep you blind to it, right? You are protecting your weakness in a way that doesn't allow it to become strengthened or to become healthy, right? It makes you better when you begin submitting it to those who are stronger in that area, okay? If you're a blind person, right, you rather walk with someone who has sight. You rather walk with someone who has what you don't have yet, or will you just allow your stubbornness to keep you stumbling, right? So your behavior, your appearance, right, your facial expressions, your attitude, your environment, the places you keep going, these all show your vulnerable areas, right? If these places, if these attitudes and these things are not growing us, it's a weakness, okay? Anger and control, that's a cover up for weakness, right? It appears strong, right? When you see an angry person, they appear strong, but they're not. Whatever you allow to make you angry has control over you, right? And they're controlling you through your emotions. And for everything that you try to have that unhealthy, overbearing control over, there lies confusion and overwhelming things that you can't handle. That's why you are overbearing in another area, right? That's why you want to be oppressive and control what you can to compensate for those out of control areas that you don't have success in, versus getting with someone that has success in that area, right? Submitting to them, submitting to their leadership, so that that weakness can become a strength. We often like to hide, right? But the more you hide, it's not benefiting you. It's stopping you and stunting your growth in that area. Okay. And so it takes courage to open up in these areas, right? But ignorance will cause you to be unnecessarily exposed. Okay. So you have those who lack the knowledge of people's intentions that allows them to be exposed to injury. And that's why you have to discern what kind of company you keep. You have to discern what is influencing you. Okay. You need the right information so that you can make informed decisions. And a lot of times, like I said, we don't want to do our due diligence. We just want to be blind sometimes because it takes work, right, to test the thing. But we're supposed to test everything. We're supposed to try every spirit, right? What are the intentions? What is this person's intention, right? This idea, this thing they're telling me, what I'm hearing, where did it come from? Okay, do your due diligence to find out the intentions, right? And when I say do your due diligence, I'm not talking about dismissing where you're being led to, right? If you're led there, you know that's where you're supposed to be. But I'm talking about just trusting every person and being open and exposed to every person. That is not wise. Okay, some people who refuse to be vulnerable with anyone is most likely is due to some type of injury, like I said, control issues, or both. If they just simply refuse. When you have a problem submitting to other people, you will refuse to be vulnerable with them, right? And this includes submitting to God. God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. So when you refuse to submit, you are refusing the strength of God to make something perfect, to make something whole in your life. And it's the same way with people, okay? When you stay closed off due to injuries, not caused by the person in question, right? You are refusing their strength in an area that could benefit you, that could increase your acceptance, right? And that can make you whole. And when I say increase your acceptance, I mean people accepting you for who you are, not giving gas to those fake personalities that you have, right? It increases your acceptance. And when you realize the people that you thought were for you were not for you, you can make a different decision, right? Lack of understanding, that is a weakness. That's a vulnerability, right? So is ignorance. So is when you don't have self-control. Bad influences are weaknesses, okay? whatever you may be suffering from mentally, physically, emotionally, these are all vulnerabilities, okay? And we allow who we want to expose these weaknesses. Well, we expose these weaknesses to them without the proper qualifications, right? We allow doctors to diagnose us. They may be a doctor, they have the education, right? But are they qualified for your diagnosis, right? We allow our friends, we allow Google, we allow our parents, right? We even allow our enemies. We expose them to our weaknesses without proper qualification, right? And I'm not talking about someone being educated, right? I'm talking about, are they strong enough to bear your weakness? Will their strength hide your weakness? If it does, then these are the people that you open up to, okay? Proof of your wholeness, right? Your healed mind and heart is your increased trust in the right people by the amount of access you give them to the real you. When you say, "Oh, I've dealt with everything, I processed everything, I'm at peace now, I'm whole." Proof of that is when you give people access to the real you, right? So if you're still not giving people access to the real you, you're not whole yet. You're not at peace yet. Okay. So you have to learn how to manage these vulnerabilities well. If you are not vulnerable at all, right? Identify your weaknesses. Find them. They're there. Okay. And then find who exhibits strength in these areas, submit to them, learn from them so that you can grow. Okay. You have to stop being upset with people that are better at certain things than you are. Stop being envious, stop being vengeful. Okay. When you work on your weaknesses, they can become strengths, but you have to work them. Okay. And if it's something that you're just not called to, stop stressing yourself out trying to live somebody else's destiny. Okay. You're great. You're awesome. You're amazing at what you were created to do. Okay. You'll suck at the stuff that you calling yourself to. Right. So if you're dealing with a situation where you just can't get it and you've tried everything, maybe it's time to ask yourself, is this my lane? Right. Is this what my purpose is? Okay. Because if you just not seeing any increase in it, right? Could it be that you're ignoring what it is that you're supposed to be doing? Because you're great at what you were created to do, because you have all the equipment. God has already lined out the people to meet you in your lifetime that could help propel you. So you're going to be great at what you were created to do. Okay. So if you're not, then you have to say, okay, did I ignore the person that was supposed to help me? Right? Did I pass them up? Or is this even my purpose? Am I even called to this? Right? So we have to be vulnerable. We have to expose our true selves, right? Otherwise, what people are accepting is fake, right? It's not the real version of you. And so you have to know who is really for you, or you will continue living in a world that is full of false identities where you turn into whoever they want you to be, right? And so that can get very exhausting and it will not bring you peace. Some of the sources of your turmoil is that you're not able to be your true self. You're not able to let people know what your needs and what your preferences are. For some of you, that's the source of your chaos. That's the source of the confusion in your life. Okay? You cannot be whole. You can't be a whole person or a person at peace with 12 different characters living your life for you. Okay? You have to start building some stronger bonds with the right people, right? And kick out those other personalities, because though they are the ones that are helping to hold the door shut to keep you closed off because they don't want to be exposed, right? And it's time for those personalities to die so that you can live. All right. So I want you to understand being vulnerable, being open and exposed is not bad. Just because someone has abused that, right, doesn't mean that you don't open yourself up to the people that have strengths in the areas that you need to grow. Okay. And so that concludes our session for today. I hope that you all received something that was beneficial to you. You don't want to just have that mindset that I'm going to stay closed off. I'm going to only continue to see the world through my victimhood, right? You have now allowed whatever has traumatized you, you have now allowed your feelings to dictate your life and to manage your world, right? And we all know that's the plan of the enemy. But we can take some of that power back by speaking to someone who has strengths in the areas that we are weak, so that we can grow, so that we can get out of that place. Okay, so that concludes our session for today. So I hope that you all receive something, like I said, and I hope that you all will start identifying where your weaknesses are. Don't ignore them. You don't want to go a whole nother year ignoring them and missing the people that are supposed to help you, right? There's people that were born to help you, right? That's their purpose, right? You are their purpose. And so you don't want to miss that or miss out what this life has to offer you by being closed off and open. Most of the time, we're either all the way closed off or we're opening up to the wrong people, right? And the more you open up to the wrong people, the more closed off you become to the right people. So manage your vulnerabilities. Awesome. Kindness is not a weakness either. It's an attribute that we receive from God. So that is not a weakness either. We're supposed to be kind. And yes, some people abuse it, doesn't make it bad. Okay. So a lot of things, a lot of gifts, people can have like these get a gift of forgiveness, a gift of grace for other people, and because people abuse it, we shut it down. Us putting those walls, it traps us in it. So then if we're trapped in there, we can't receive kindness, right? We're stopping our kindness, our forgiveness, our grace from going out, but we're also stopping it from coming in. So when you have those characteristics that are good, that are like Christ, we don't want to stop them. We just need to manage who it is and discern who it is that we are, exposing these vulnerabilities to. Right. So I know a lot of times those good characteristics, those things can be snuffed out of us quite young, like through teenage years and our early adulthood. I believe the enemy tries to snatch that, right? So that we stay closed off, we stay in this hole, and then we all of the negative things are able to influence us, right? But that a lot of times when you talk to people that do like horrible things, some people are psychopaths, but you have people that do horrible things that it's not really who they are. They're just trying to compensate or control and stop themselves from being too kind, from being too gracious, from being too forgiving, and in doing that, trying to prove that they're not who they really are. They end up doing horrible things. And so you really want to talk to people and find out. We have to use wisdom. Why? Even people, even friends and family, and all of that. If you've had issues with your parents, ask them if you would sit them down, without the judgment, and ask, okay, well, why did you do this when I was growing up? Why did you make this decision? Instead of harboring those ill feelings, you will find out where it came from. And so that's why we should be kind. We should be forgiving so that we can get to the root of why this is happening, and solve it. And that way it doesn't continue to travel from generation to generation. It doesn't travel to the people around you, especially if you are like an employer or people that have authority over people. That will trickle down to the people that are subordinate to you, right? The way you handle things. And so you have to make sure you get to the reason why, and then you could heal it. if they choose to. If they don't, that's their decision. But instead of harboring around those ill feelings, find out why. It could be what you thought it was, or it could be something completely different. It could be a misunderstanding, right? But ignorance and misunderstandings, that's a weakness. In order to strengthen that, get an understanding, get knowledge, right? Get wisdom. And all I getting, get the understanding. And so we want to be mindful of that. And it's up to us. If we all believe in God, it's up to us to change this world. It's up to us to shine that light. We should be kind, we should be gracious, we should be forgiving, we should be patient, right? We should be long suffering. We shouldn't be the ones that are angry all the time and can't solve nothing, no understanding. That shouldn't be us, right? And so when people see our good works, it glorifies our Father which is in heaven. And so we will quote that scripture, but we won't do that scripture, right? And so we have to do what we were created to do. Start that process of managing your vulnerabilities. So thank you all for joining me. Y'all have a good weekend.